fundamentally, the product solutions role is about the delivery of the voice system. I mean, that's kind of the fundamental, but realistically, it's far more than that. It's about embedding yourself within the business and understanding the business problems as much as the people there.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of PolyAI's podcast. Today with me, I have Becky Kershaw, who is one of our first product solutions managers. Becky joined us in 21, right in the middle of COVID. It was a very exciting time in our company's history with some of the first deployments going live. And as the world buzzes with talk of forward deployed, SaaS being dead, and the need for people to go out, spend time with clients, and really figure out what it takes to bring AI to the world productively and transformationally, I thought it would be a great idea to go through the past few years back here and just kind of like some of the good stories that we've had from many of the clients that you work with. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. I think as we discussed about what to actually have in this one, I think we naturally gravitated to a few of the stories from those early deployments. I think one of them was people talk about outbound sales with voice agents. I think this particular one, I don't know, maybe I'll let you frame the story, but I think it was one of my dearest memories of early stage PolyAI.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, this is one of our kind of very early opportunities. As you say, outbound sales. We were selling point of sale systems to business owners in the US. And we kind of started off with quite a standard way around it. We chose an American TTS voice and kind of used some of their sort of standard scripts for how they made their own sales calls and went live with it. And really struggled from the get-go to get kind of any engagement from their customers. People were hanging up all the time, really struggling to get kind of the leads we wanted. And I think you remember me coming into your office kind of after work one time and was like, "Oh, I'm really, really struggling with this. I'm not sure how we're gonna get this to work." And so we talked about it a bit, and we were kind of thinking that, well, actually, these business owners, they're going to get these sorts of calls all the time, and so they're so used to hanging up. They hear the voice, and they put down the phone. What they're not used to is a British voice. And so what we ended up doing was cloning my voice for this project, kind of adapting the script a bit, and within a week, I think we got 4 leads, and so. Yeah, I think that's like the real key to that is just like being creative. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that our longest standing board member, Sri Chandrasekhar from Point 72, we spend a lot of time just saying like, look, if someone speaks with a posh British accent like you do, people just assume their IQ is like 30, 40 points higher, right? Especially in America. And I remember suggesting that, and I was like, well, I barely knew you. I was like, this is the edge of political incorrectness. But I'm like, hey, like, why not, right? Like, what is this if not to have some fun? And I was shocked at the difference. I actually have one of the calls that converted, so I'm just going to play it now because I think people should hear it.
From National Retail Commission. Are you the owner or the manager here?
Yes, speaking. Hello?
Fantastic. So I'm calling today to talk to you about a new program we've got to upgrade your point of sale system. We've actually been running it with some store owners in your area and managed to save me a few $1,000s. I can transfer you to someone right now to walk you through the program and see what we could save you. Can I put you through?
What is it again?
We're running a program that could eliminate your credit card processing fees and save you thousands of dollars per year. Can I transfer you through to one of my colleagues?
But you'd still be charging a fee, right?
It's actually better for you to talk to my colleague if you want to know this.
Yeah, but to be honest, I don't. Yeah, briefly. Yeah.
Excellent. Let me just put you through. 1 second.
And this one through the guy I ended up purchasing from like the next agent, and I couldn't believe the difference, right? I mean, the A/B test was afterwards. I took one of our SDRs, the sales development reps, Tom, and we gave him an American list. And I think in a week he got 8 meetings booked, when the average kind of like person in the US in our teams then was getting about 3 meetings a week. So I think that's like just I think a sales hack that probably works to this day, because I guess you want to feel like you're being sold. And if you're driving around, the state of New York and you get a British voice, it's different at least, right?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, the attention's completely different.
Yeah. Although I don't think we set up any royalties for you here for the deployment. Like, I think people today would be savvier about their voice being used, and you know. But anyways, kind of like using that as a segue. What does a product solutions manager do? Like, what is that role? Like for people interested in kind of like going into AI, what's the right background? What are the right skill sets? Where does it lead, right?
Yeah. So I mean, fundamentally, the product solutions role is about the delivery of the voice system. I mean, that's kind of the fundamental, but realistically, it's far more than that. It's about embedding yourself within the business and understanding the business problems as much as the people there, so that you can understand how we use voice AI to fix these pain points. So kind of the initial deployments are really the starting point for a lot of these initiatives. The data we use from the calls can then keep on informing business decisions, can really kind of operationally change the businesses we're working with. And yeah, I think that's basically the most interesting part of this is kind of seeing where we can go after that fast phase.
Yeah, I think like when we started, and I'd hear people talk about software delivering enterprise insights. It just sounded like a bunch of fluff and bullshit to me, right? I was like, what do they mean? It just sounds like, but what do you really do, right? You go in the morning, you open your computer, like, what do you do? I deliver enterprise insights, right?
Yes.
And I was here for 3 years until we started delivering valuable enterprise insights. And I wonder if you could share some of the examples that you've seen over the years.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, the first one that springs to mind is when I was working with a cruise line a couple of years ago. We were building a voice assistant to handle kind of queries about the whole cruise process. So from pre-boarding, visas, passport information about the ship, information about excursions, kind of a wide range, as you can imagine. And when we went live, we saw this kind of wide range of queries and spent the first sort of few weeks sort of tuning the bot to make sure that the customer experience was tight. But I remember about a month, 6 weeks in, we were looking at the data and we saw that there was a massive spike in one of the FAQs. And this one was related to website issues. And usually it had kind of a few triggers every day. But on this particular day, I had hundreds of people asking and kind of complaining about the website. And so we reported this on to the client and found out there was an issue with their booking system that day. So they were able to then report that on to their IT team and get that sorted. And it kind of then spiraled into, well, why don't we use this voice assistant also for this data collection piece? So we reworked the knowledge base. We kind of added in some more granular logging, and then found out kind of a lot of these sort of small issues were causing quite a lot of inbound contact, things like booking references not sending and kind of confirmation pages not working. And so we're able to really work with them and their IT team to kind of tighten that up and reduce that inbound contact.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really fantastic. Like just, it started off with a few kind of like, freak occurrences like those where we just saw that this AI hive mind we put in front of all their customers is able to kind of like gather insights and react to things a lot more quickly, where things that might be anecdotal among individual agents who might get like 3 calls about something in a day, they might not think much of it. They're not really compensated for reporting it. They're not sure if it's out of the ordinary, if they're new. Whereas if they all got like 3 calls about something instead of 0.03, that's really statistically significant, right? And then I think when you have the first layer being automated, you see a lot of it, right? But that's a simple example. I mean, I can think of a few more. There's one of the leading global kind of like delivery companies that you've supported for many, many years. I think that story is really, really impactful.
Yeah, completely. So yeah, as you say, one of the clients we work with is a big delivery company. And when we first went live, we kind of built a voice system for tracking and rescheduling and kind of general delivery preference management. And the deployment went well. I think on day one, we were able to fully automate about 30% of their calls, and within a couple of months, that had gone up to about 50%. So like a pretty successful in that way. But I think they hadn't got any automation before us, and so as a consequence, had very few data points on why customers were calling. And again, it's kind of that sort of whispering around the contact center. No one's willing to really like investigate this, but there's kind of things that agents are noticing, but no one's got data around. And one of those things was when we were looking at the data, we saw that there was actually a lot of demand for customers to pick up their parcels rather than have them delivered to their doorstep. Obviously, it gives the customers a lot more flexibility about when they can get their parcel. They don't have to stay in all day. And this was something that the delivery company didn't actually offer at the time. And so I think we were pushing more towards rescheduling. So we reported this to the client and kind of talked through what sort of potential solution we could offer here, and ended up creating a whole new kind of operational solution for them, where the voice system would collect some of the customer's details, then send an email to a depot, and then the depot would put that parcel aside for collection the next day. And this is obviously kind of a big improvement on the customer experience itself. Like, customers no longer have to wait in all day, reduces repeated inbound contact where they're going to have to keep calling back every day to reschedule, and then also reduces the number of delivery attempts per parcel. So like really quite, I guess, like operationally transformative in that way.
Yeah. No, I mean that was absolutely crazy, right? Because you kind of see a habit that formed when the other way, legend became myth, and it just kind of like turned into this. We do it this way, right? And I think when people kind of like, people don't know this, but like in the post-call part of a call in a contact center, agents just log, this is like the caller reason, right? It might be misdelivery, but then what else happened kind of gets lost. And there's a lot of software that tries to mine data, and by and large, it's used mostly to kind of detect, profanities or it's literally like bad words and happy words, and it's like +1, -1. And it's like Nikola tends to be a bad agent because people curse with him, or he curses when he speaks to people. And Becky is a better agent because, there are less swear words involved in her conversations. It's literally like that level of sophistication, right? And I think that when you're able to pull this kind of like data, which has these conditional statements and kind of gets more interesting, like it can lead to, 10% reduction in like redeliveries, which is millions and millions of dollars, pounds, you name it. And then, I think like one of my best friends, Ognian, has worked for Palantir for about a decade. And he first told me about the notion of deployment strategist. And I think that Palantir now gets a lot of credit for kind of like bravely pioneering that model and putting really good, strong people to work with companies as agents of change that simultaneously feed kind of like signal about what it is we should build and how we should do it repeatedly in different use cases. And I think, like the RPSM role, where, I think your deployment with FedEx there was one of the first examples where I really saw just what it means to be embedded. Because at some point, I really felt like you and a few other team members there work for them, right? I mean, of course, you've got PolyAI badges and, you're in the office half the time, but you're with them so much. And I think we came to know a lot about just what it is they do. And I think like the dashboards you showed me, I'd nod kind of like violently pretending to understand things, but very quickly the vocabulary of the team working on it internally at PolyAI became something else entirely. I mean, you guys were effectively their employees. Do you think they could have done it without you?
I mean, I think they certainly have like the right people are there, and the people who care are there. They know their business problems. Obviously, they care about tracking this data. But I think how we can assist is understanding how to leverage that the technology to do that, to give those insights and to kind of work out the next step of how we use those to kind of really transform the business and solve those problems. That's kind of how I see the role.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like the whole like sequence of change goes into where the business and IT together decide to work with someone like us, and then I feel like our role is really just to short circuit the dopamine hits and like between them, so that the company gets addicted to doing this more internally together. Another, of course, military analogy I have is we give them an aircraft carrier, we borrow them the crew. 3 years later, they bring in their sailors, or immediately they bring in their sailors. 3 years later, the first of them becomes an officer. 3 years after that, one of those officers on their end becomes the captain, and we slowly, kind of like withdraw and leave the aircraft in their hands. I think one piece that everyone talks about when we talk just about forward deployed as a notion is, do you get better with increased reps, or are we really just the consulting shop that builds 0 to 1 every single time? Can you tell me a bit about how that felt for you and kind of like maybe projects where you first started to see that increased reps, well, if give that kind of like, benefit?
I think our first ever deployment was within the restaurant industry. And I think that now we've got so many different restaurants in our system, and it's a very well-oiled machine. And we know this model works well. Like the whole premise behind the use case is obvious. So we take the bookings over the phone so that the waiters and waitresses in the restaurant are not having to run between tables and phone constantly. And so like this, it's so obvious how we can provide that benefit there. And of course, like the immediate benefit is the kind of uplift in revenue, no lost bookings anymore. But then I think through working with restaurants and working with them and understanding what they care about and kind of incremental benefits we can also offer. We have a lot of data, once again, about when people are booking. We can see that, table for two on a Saturday night is always going to be popular. Table for four at a Sunday lunchtime, there's always going to be those peaks in volume. And more than that, we can see where we're turning people away as well. And we can track that data too. And very repeatably across kind of all of our restaurants, we can see that, actually, if they had more tables for two at this time, then we'd be able to get, X more bookings. And so what we've done with quite a lot of our restaurants is provided this kind of excess demand data to them so that they can reorganize their table setup and get that operational benefit there. So I think like really deeply embedding ourselves in a particular industry is kind of means that we then become the experts in terms of how to advise how to use our technology better. So yeah, that repeatability of our use cases is absolutely beneficial to everyone, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the first jungle test for a restaurant deployment, how long it took to build. Of course,
Yeah.
this was the Gen AI world. And I remember a woman telling me how she doesn't want to test it because she doesn't want to feed AI data because it's going to destroy us all one day. Can't believe that I'm agreeing with her more now than I did back then. But it was really, really interesting. I mean, I think that like those upsells and things, like Mother's Day, Father's Day, I think something like 13% in your increases. Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So another thing that we can do with our restaurants is have upsell behaviors. So I think our first time doing this was in the month leading up to Mother's Day, maybe. At the end of every successful booking, we kind of say to the customer, "Oh, well, like while you're here, Mother's Day is coming up and it's getting a bit busy. Like, how about you make your booking now?" And yeah, as you said, like the uptake on that is actually massive. People, the convenience is there. It's only and we've already got their details from last time. They just need to give a couple more details and then it's all booked in. And so, yeah, we saw that massive uplift in bookings as a consequence. So that's something, again, kind of can be repeated across all of our sort of restaurant clients, that sort of behavior.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point we've got something like well over 2,000 different restaurant and pub sites. I think this morning I just realized with Steve, who's our GM for restaurants, that we are actually, given that we have like personalized information on when you booked, what you booked, what your preferences are, we're almost probably one of the bigger agglomerators of people's dietary preferences and a few other things, both in the US and the UK. So I guess with that comes a bit of a big brother vibe, but equally something that just works really well because you can like predict those patterns. I think one that I found really interesting was a lot of the restaurant managers would block off tables for 8 or 10 on Saturday evenings. And you're like, why? Right? Because they can easily join up a table of 4 and 6. And there's a version where you can like block doing that or not, right? And because we tend to work with the enterprise at large and not with individual, say, site owners, we realized that most were blocked. And when it came down to the preferences, they were actually saying no to bookings that were being made for like 30 minutes later, 60 minutes later, right? And if you really think about it, it's almost invariably a group of men who are already deep into a drinking session and they're coming down with 8, 10 people to, buy a round each. They're rowdy groups. They make those sites a lot of money, but equally, they may not be the most pleasant or audio compatible groups with families having dinner. So it is really something for individual sites, but we've seen the corporate side overrule some of those settings later when we surface that. But it's really interesting because I mean the whole kind of like learning about the problem, I think we know far more than I thought we ever would about restaurants, about deliveries, about banking patterns, about really all sorts of clients. When you think back to kind of like, in undergrad you did linguistics, right? How do you feel like, and I mean, we're probably one of the larger employees of freshly graduated, top tier linguists from the best schools in the UK and the US. What do you think like a linguist, like, graduating these days in this age, what are the best career steps? And kind of like, why is this interesting?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I mean, anyone who has a degree in linguistics or an interest in linguistics ultimately like has a big care about language and about people. And I think that's like the most valuable skill in this kind of industry, because obviously AI is an industry full of machine learning engineers and very techie people, but the human aspect is the thing that gets us to the next step. You can have all the technology that you want, but without really crafting those kind of those voices and those prompts and really like caring to the nth degree about that user experience, you're not going to get the results that you want. So yeah, I think that's the kind of the importance of that linguistics skill set within this industry.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like when I think of just like some of the problems there, I feel like a linguist, and I say this as someone who, at best, during my PhD, you might have called me a computational linguist. Although I have quite a keen interest in languages, and I've definitely done a lot of, first order logic and similar bits of boring maths that co-occur with linguistics. But um, I remember when we were building a Hebrew system, and obviously neither you nor I speak Hebrew, but I feel like was it the nouns and like the endings of words that you could just not, without knowing the gender of the person, you would just not be able to actually
Exactly.
code it in like text alone, right? Or
Exactly. We had to work out a whole solution of how we could talk to people without knowing their gender, because it was so dependent on whether it was male or female how you change your language. Like those are the sorts of problems that people have no idea that that's going to be something you come across other than people with that language background, I think.
yeah, I mean, I feel like, especially as and Poly and PolyAI has always stood for polyglot, and something that I think gets our team really excited. I think our dialogue design team is probably about 20 people strong right now, and I feel like a linguist, and probably even more so a linguist than someone who studied languages, although again, there's a continuum of people there, uh, is more equipped to work on a set of languages that they don't speak, right? Because yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Um I was kind of responsible a few years ago for our first proper European rollout. And I think I found it very interesting to see that even though all the languages we were rolling out to were very different, you can still sense what sounds human. Even if you have no ability to speak that language, you can tell when the rise and fall sounds natural and when it sounds like a robot, and you can tell when customers will engage with it or not. And so yeah, I think like people with that background have that curiosity to really understand what will make it work in each different language we can work with.
yeah. Well, just kind of like anecdotally, like saying that pan-European rollout, which countries kind of like and consumers were more open to voice agents, which ones were more hesitant?
Oh, that's a good question. I really don't know actually. I feel like there is a very kind of there's the cultural divide between like the Southern Europe and the kind of where they're kind of a bit more relaxed about it all, I think, and the sort of Central Europe, Germany, Dutch, and also Northern, who are all a bit more kind of hot on it being very accurate and have very different opinions about how we should introduce ourselves, whether we should introduce ourselves as voice AI or not. Like we're even now like debating and kind of having A/B tests in the Netherlands, because we're trying to work out whether actually it works better if you talk to them more directly, and introducing yourself as a voice assistant, and kind of depart a bit away from our normal "how can I help" mentality. So yeah, I think like those sorts of conversations are really interesting, because you think you know it all. You think you know the best design practices, but actually everything changes when you deal with different cultures who have different opinions about how customer service works.
Well, being married to one of them, I don't think anyone ever accused the Dutch of a lack of directness in their communication. So I don't even know what the A/B test would be about. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like what we've seen from enterprises in Germany historically has been like kind of like legal, almost overreaching with interpretations of the EU AI Act and how it should be. A lot of not actually legally mandated, but interpreted needs for opt-ins to speaking to automation and stuff that just kind of like really wear down the caller. And by the time that they've agreed to recording, they've heard the disclaimer, they've heard that it's automated, they've heard what it can do, and they've heard that they can opt out. I mean, I don't know how the poor soul can do anything other than opt out.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that sort of fear around AI technology is possibly the most kind of disruptive thing that can happen to our technologies. All of those disclaimer messages, all of the "you will be talking to a voice assistant in 30 seconds" is the thing that really kills that customer experience. And so the more natural the conversation, and the quicker it starts as well. Like, customers don't want to be hearing lots of automated messages before they start having a conversation. It kind of kills the whole benefit of us picking up the phone immediately. So yeah, we always want it to be kind of as natural as possible so that customers can get that resolution straight away and talk like they're talking to a real human.
Yep. Maybe final question then for you. In Britain, when you look at the dialects and the successes that we've had and stuff, what are the kind of like top voices that you've seen work effectively with the general kind of like population?
Yeah, it's a good question. I remember also talking about linguistics as well. This was like these studies happened all the time about kind of what accents work best. I think the general consensus is like a northern accent, Geordie accent is generally best to pick up the phone. I mean, it's so friendly. People trust the voice. So that and Scottish, I think, probably have that real good air of like friendliness and helpfulness that people really engage with. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think that's general consensus in the contact center space. I don't know if it's because most contact centers are there, so people come to like
Yeah.
being an immigrant to this country. I mean, the Scottish accent can be daunting. So can some of the northern ones. Yeah, but you do sound friendlier. Okay. Any other thoughts or kind of like parting thoughts for, I don't know, say freshly graduated linguists looking at these kinds of careers? Would you still kind of like, when you look at like everything that's happened with AI and going forward, would you still kind of like go back and do linguistics at university, or would you like think of doing something else?
Oh, completely. Yeah. I mean, I studied linguistics because I loved that it interacted with so many different disciplines. Like, it's a science, it's an art, it's a it's kind of interacts with society. It's so interesting. And I think that when I went into it, the AI space looked completely different to how it does now. And I joined this company as a dialogue designer, which is a role that has evolved as the technology's evolved. I used to handcraft every individual utterance, and now it's all about prompting. So I think that I wouldn't go back. I wouldn't change anything about my kind of journey there. But I think that the way that the degree is used and the way that kind of knowledge is used has changed so much in the last sort of 3-4 years and continues to change, which is the exciting thing.
Yeah. But I mean, I really think that like a linguist is much better suited to actually do the fine tuning and backpropagation through what it's going to take to have these good experiences than a machine learning person who's used to looking at a loss function and the gradient changing. Because at the end of the day, like, it is really about the end people and consumers that the system is interacting with, and there's still like quite a lot of work to be done when you deploy one of these.
Totally. Yeah, completely.
Cool. Well, Becky, thank you for joining me in this episode, and for sharing all the insights from these projects.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you for tuning in.